Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 9 and I am a leader in this group. We want to present about how the bank fraud investigation process works. First of all, we want to introduce ourselves. And my name is Lalu Fisabilillah.
My name is Dinda Syifa Andriani.
I am Nabila Putri Lisandrina.
I am Ahmad Zakih.
Okay, let's start. Definition of fraud. Bank fraud is the use of potentially illegal means to obtain money, assets, or other property owned or held by a financial institution, or to obtain money from depositors by fraudulently posing as a bank or other financial institution. In many instances, bank fraud is a criminal offense. And then there is types of bank fraud. There are 6 points about types of bank fraud. Okay, we start from accounting fraud. Accounting fraud primarily affect business lending. Business who commit accounting fraud book the books, so they look more profitable on paper than they really are. Based on these fraudulent statements, banks grant loans to this business, but ultimately, because the business are insolvent, they can't repay the loans. Then, the banks get left with a loss. Next, loan fraud. Loan fraud. Accounting fraud can lead to loan fraud, but this type of fraud isn't just limited to business presenting fraudulent information on their loan applications. When individuals present false information in order to obtain a loan, that is also loan fraud. Similarly, if a thief steals someone's identity and applies for a loan in their name, that is another type of loan fraud. Additionally, if someone has a line of credit and a scam artist draws funds from that line, it also falls into this category. And next, wire transfer fraud. Wire fraud includes all cases of fraud involving wire transfer or the internet. In some cases, the scammers steal the username and password of a banking customer and they wire money to themselves. Often, however, with this type of fraud, the scam artist convinces the victim to wire money out to them. For instance, in the all too popular secret shopper scam, the scam artist convinced someone that they've been hired to be a secret shopper from a wire transfer company or bank. The kind of wire transfer fraud are phishing fraud, rogue traders, and demand draft fraud. And next, bill discounting fraud. Although this type of bank fraud is relatively rare, you should still understand the rise. Generally, with bill discounting fraud, the fraudster opens a business account at the bank. Then, the business owner convinces the bank to start collecting bills from the business clients. The so-called clients are part of the scam, so they always pay the bills. After a while, the financial institution gets lulled into a false sense of security about this customer. Eventually, the customer asks the bank to credit the bills in advance. When the bank does that, the fraudster takes all the money and runs, and the bank never gets those funds back. And attempt fraud. Attempt fraud includes everything from reprogramming the machine to installing a scammer to steal card details. And last, money laundering. Money laundering is when criminals deposit fraudulently obtained sums of cash into a bank. They typically try to make the funds look as though they have come from legitimate source. For instance, if someone is selling drugs, they may try to pretend that the cash is from a business, and they may deposit the funds in that business account.
Now, I can describe purpose of fraud investigation. The purpose of a fraud investigation is to gather evidence of a fraud, if any. Even in light of the fraud allegation, an investigator should be objective in her or his work, attempting to determine whether or not there is actually evidence of a fraud. Evidence of embezzlement or other types of corporate fraud goes beyond documentation such as paper, computer files, or other written source. It also includes testimony received from interviews and interrogation, fingerprints and stolen objects, personal observation of the fraud investigator, and information collected via surveillance and covert operations. In addition to a detailed examination of books and records, fraud investigator and forensic accountants may also look at other indirectly relevant documentation. This might include prior audit and investigation files, which can give insight into the operations of the company and prior fraud situations. The fraud investigation process should not be left to amateurs. There is often only has one chance to get an investigator right. A fraud investigation can be done when evidence is compromised or destroyed. Competent professionals are efficiently completing an investigation so that management and employees can get back to the business of doing business.
And next, causes of fraud. Fraud in general can occur for a number of reasons which are commonly referred to as the found triangles. The three reasons are the existence of pressure, the existence of opportunities, and the existence of rationalizations. First, pressure. Pressure is a situation where a person believes that they feel the need to commit fraud. This pressure, for example, is due to the condition of an employee's economic difficulties that encourage employees to commit fraud. The employee welfare factor must be an important concern of management to erode employee motivation or motivation to commit fraud. It is true that there is no guarantee that even a prosperous employee will not commit fraud, and employees who feel less prosperous will also commit fraud, all back to the individual. Second, opportunity. Opportunity is a situation where someone believes that there is an opportunity or condition that promise benefits if they commit fraud and are not detected. Opportunities can encourage the possibility of an employee to commit fraud even when the employee doesn't have the pressure of commit fraud. Work system, loose work mechanism, even intimate family relationships within one company can encourage employees to think that there is an opportunity to commit fraud. Often those who are suspected of committing fraud are employees who have been a certain work unit for too long. This is understandable because the employee may already know the gaps in the work system. Third, rationalizations. Rationalization is a form of thinking that makes someone who commits fraud feel that this cheating attitude is acceptable. This can happen if there is no strict law enforcement, or if there is an omission of fraud, or maybe if an employee finds out that this colleague are committing fraud, then he will feel it is okay to commit fraud.
Next, I can describe what is the bank fraud investigation process. Detecting bank fraud. The first step in the bank fraud investigation process is to identify fraudulent activity. Telltale signs of bank fraud include unfamiliar payments showing up on a victim statement or unexpected tips into their overdraft. These are things that might go unnoticed in regularly checked bank account and statements, but sometimes such activity can go unnoticed for some time. If the fraud is happening via identity theft, the victim might receive correspondence, such as bills or letters from debt collectors. Stage 2. Investigating the case. A common question is, how long do fraud investigations last? Once notified of fraud, banks take immediate action to ensure your card is protected by pausing or canceling the bank card in question and issuing a new one if necessary. This is also generally when victims would call Action Fraud to report the incident to get a crime reference number. Next, Stage 3. Reimbursing stolen funds. Do banks reimburse stolen money? Generally speaking, banks should refund stolen money to victims in cases of bank fraud. This can take anywhere from a day to a few days, depending on the duration of the investigation. The only time the bank might refuse reimbursement is if they believe you were an accessory to fraudulent activity or were negligent with your bank security. Fraud victims might take the perpetrator to court if they were unable to retrieve the money from their bank.
A next case example of fraud. Maria Pauline Lumoa, a fugitive in a major embezzlement case involving more than $100 million in bank loans, was extradited by the Serbian government to Indonesia on Wednesday, 7 years after she was named suspect. She is accused by Indonesian authorities of embezzling loans totaling $136 million and €56 million issued by state-owned Bank BNI between October 2002 and July 2003. Indonesian investigators alleged that she had used fake letter of credit to get the export loans for mining and plantation company Gramarindo Group, which CEO founded with Adrian Waworuntu. Adrian has been found guilty of the same case and sentenced to life in prison. BNI became suspicious in June 2003 and ran on investigations, only to find that Gramarindo Group had never engaged in export sales. The State Bank reported the case to the National Police, but Maria had already fled the country. She resided in Singapore in September 2003, a month before police named her corruption suspect. In 2009, Indonesian authorities learned that she had moved residence to the Netherlands. The government requested her extradition to the Dutch government twice in 2010 and 2014, but to no avail. Maria has held the Dutch citizenship since 1979. According to Yasona, her adventure ended on July 16 last year, when she was arrested by the Interpol upon arrival at the Nikola Tesla International Airport, Serbia.
Next, fraud prevention. First, know your employees. Fraud perpetrators often display behavioral traits that can indicate the intention to commit fraud. Observing and listening to employees can help you identify potential fraud risks. It's important for management to be involved with their employees and take time to get to know them. Second, make employees aware or set up reporting system. Awareness affects all employees. Everyone within the organization should be aware of the fraud risk policy, including types of fraud and the consequences associated with them. Those who are planning to commit fraud will know that management is watching and will hopefully be deterred by this. Third, implement internal controls. Internal controls are the plans or programs implemented to safeguard your company's assets, ensure the integrity of its accounting records, and deter or detect fraud or theft. Segregation of duties is an important component of internal control that can reduce the risk of fraud. Fourth, monitor vacation balances. You might be impressed by the employees who haven't missed a day of work in years. While this may sound like loyal employees, it could be a sign that these employees have something to hide and are worried that someone will detect their fraud if they were out of the office for some time. It's also a good idea to rotate employees to various jobs within a company. Fifth, hire trustworthy experts. Many of the people working for your company. However, not all of these experts have the experience or the reputation for providing the service that is best for your needs. When hiring accountants, fraud examiners, and other expert professionals who will have access to sensitive company information such as bank account numbers, it is critical to ensure these firms or individuals have reputation built on quality service and trustworthiness. Apart from some of the things that I have mentioned, a positive work environment can prevent employee fraud and theft. There should be a clear organizational structure, written policy and procedures, and fair employment practices. So, in the end of our presentation, we can conclude that the impact of fraud on entities like banks and the economic cost of fraud can be huge in terms of likely disruption, confidence in the banking system, and may damage the integrity and stability of the economy. It can bring down banks, undermine the central bank's supervisory role, and even create social unrest, discontent, and political upheavals. Occupational fraud can be result in huge financial loss, legal costs, and ruined reputations that can ultimately lead to the downfall of an organization. I think having the proper plan in place can significantly reduce fraudulent activities from occurring or cut losses if a fraud already occurred. Making the company policy known to employees is one of the best ways to deter fraudulent behavior. Following through with the policy and enforcing the no steps and consequences when someone is caught is crucial to preventing fraud.
Okay guys, that's all about it. Thank you for your attention. Hope it can be useful. See you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.